want to try as much as possible, try to find out who and engage the presiding officer, just maybe to explain the cause of the delay, because it's been ranging between 2 and 3 hours in regards to people queuing, waiting to vote at this particular station. But also remember that apart from the Gishogo polling station constituency, we also have Mwea constituency, like I mentioned. We have Kirinaga Central, we have Dia constituency. Earlier on, we were able to witness the Azimio Moja deputy presidential candidate, that is Martha Karua, being the first one to cast her vote at the Mugumo Primary School here in Gishugu constituency, kicking off the process in that particular area. It's still ongoing. Another maybe significant candidate, a significant high-level politician we're expecting at this particular polling station is the incumbent governor, Anne Waiguru, expected to arrive at this particular point any moment from now. Her initial campaign team indicated that she'll arrive at 11. That has been postponed, so we're still waiting for her arrival. What we know is that some of the other candidates or competitors in the gubernatorial race, I'm talking about the likes of Purity Girishi, already cast her vote earlier today at the Kirinaga Central constituency earlier on. But remember that Kirinaga County, like I said, has attracted various contestants. We have about 8 of them contesting for the gubernatorial race. We have 7 of those, also 7 others contesting for the senatorial position, and also now 8 others for the women rep position. So we're still camping here in Kirinaga County. Some of the high-profile senior citizens who have also cast their votes here include the Interior Principal Secretary, who is Karanja Kibisho, who was also able to cast his vote in their constituency. So we're here keeping base and staying awake to what's transpiring at this particular polling station.
Thanks, Seth. Seth Olale there, speaking to us live from county number 20, Kirinyaga. 376,001 voters. Where are we going to next?
We are headed to Narok County, where Jeff Renange is still standing by to give us the latest. He looks like he's about to hop onto a chopper to somewhere in Kenya.
Bila shaka mtazamaji, tunarudi tena county 033 county ya Narok, ambapo tunaungana naye tena Jeff Koinange. Naona uko tayari na hata helikopta imeanza kuwaka. Unaelekea wapi sasa?
Hapo kweli Swale, helikopta ya Sky Team ndio hiyo mnaisikia hapo nyuma yangu. Lakini kabla hatujatoka hapa Kilgoris, tunataka kuongea na presiding officer wa hii Osinoni Primary School polling station hapa. Anaitwa Nicholas Ketere. Nicholas, voter turnout, how has it been today?
We are at around 50% at now. We opened the station very early in the morning, 0600 hours, and the voting process is so well. The line has moved smoothly. Yeah.
And I see there's a lot of peace, the calm. Is there security presence here? Is the police making sure that everything is okay?
Yeah, the police on duty are doing their work. Everything is okay. The line is moving calmly. There's a lot of peace here.
And you're going to be open at polls close at 5 p.m. like everywhere?
Yes, likely we're going to close at 17:00 hours in the evening.
And tell me, Nicholas, what happens after that? What happens after polls close?
In fact, after closing the polling station, we'll start counting the votes. Yeah.
So we should expect results from here maybe tomorrow?
Not really. We're expecting at around midnight, because the registered voters are so many, 686. So at around midnight we'll be through. Yeah.
All right, Swale, Victoria, Trevor, you've heard from presiding officer Nicholas Katere there. Voting is going peacefully here in Kilgoris, and we're going to continue hopping with the Sky Team. Swale, you were asking earlier on, what's the next stop? It's called Emurua Dikir, east of its constituency, east of Transmara. So that's where the Sky Team is headed to next. Keep watching Citizen Television, Ramogi TV, Inoro TV, and the Sky Team for wall-to-wall coverage, back-to-back coverage of everything that has to do with Kenya's Choice 2022. Back to you all in the studios.
So it doesn't matter, we are all equal citizens of this country, whether you are a violent candidate or you are a normal voting candidate. And so that happened to Uhuru Kenyatta, the president of this country, we also have had to wait because there's a procedure that has to be followed. That's all that has to be done. And we have to exercise some patience because you understand that we have a big number of voters who are supposed to be turning up today, 22 million voters. We have until around 16,000 interested candidates who are also supposed to be actually authorizing their right to actually represent the people. And so we need to exercise some patience. But also something interesting to note about an observation I've made about the president voted first before the first lady, and when the first lady came, you could see that the first lady was donning the president's jacket, which basically means that it was a very cold morning and that the first lady was actually feeling cold, and the president was a gentleman and he gave his order to the wife. So that's something
wa kutoka wakiwa warm kwa nyumba. Kwani wako anajua ni asubuhi na ni mapema na kuna baridi, kila mtu atoke akiwa amenyuka.
Because I'm still interested in understanding this, Shadrach. Allegations by Wajakoya that he is not yet voted. And here's the situation. We only have 4 presidential candidates in the country. And Wajakoya's details are missing from the King Street. They have now to
Watu wamejazana.
which has, of course, hindered the process. But what is important is this, Victor. I think the misunderstanding I was making reference to previously on the ruling that...
Na huyo ni Jeff Koinange akiwa na kikosi kile cha wanaanga, si wale wanaanga wa jeshi, lakini hawa ni wanaanga waandishi wa habari kutoka hapa Royal Media, ambapo anazunguka na ndege aina ya helikopta katika kila sehemu akitupasha yanayojiri sehemu mbalimbali. Ametoka eneo hilo alilokuwa, sasa anaelekea eneo la Emurua Dikir kuweza kutufahamisha pia ni yapi yanayofanyika ama yanayojiri katika upigaji kura eneo hilo la Emurua Dikir. Huyo ni mwandishi wetu Jeff Koinange. Trevor.
Asante sana Babu, the Sky Team there. You know, for a moment there I thought Jeff was going to go longitudes, latitudes and all the above sea level. Okay, what's going on?
It's just up and away for the Sky Team, but exciting stuff there. We'll be waiting to hear where else they land and the update from the ground.
Yeah, they're flying over the 6 constituencies there: Kilgoris, Emurua Dikir, Narok North, Narok East, Narok South and Narok West. But now they're heading to Emurua Dikir. There, the total of voters in that particular place Emurua Dikir is 44,040. Probably Jeff can see all of them from the top.
He probably can. Demarcating them, maybe a different story.
Let's cross over to Martin Unene, who's standing by in Nyeri. Martin, good afternoon. What's going on where you are?
You should now go home and wait. No.
Nyeri County. What we can say in Nyeri County is that we have been able to traverse the several counties, several constituencies within this county. Nyeri has 6 constituencies, and we began in Madera, where the Kenya Kwanza deputy presidential candidate Rigathi Gachagua was exercising his democratic right, and where he was able to actually vote. From there, we went to Nyeri town, where one of the gubernatorial candidates out of the 4 gubernatorial gubernatorial candidates in Nyeri was able to vote. That is Dr. Thuo Mathenge. From there, we crossed over to Mukurweine, where the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyeri, John Kagusha, was also able to vote, and he is trying to actually get elected as Member of Parliament for Mukurweine. Now we are in Kieni, the most expansive constituency in Nyeri County. It makes about 52% of the landmass of Nyeri County, and at the same time, it's about actually it is the most populous because it has over 114,000 registered voters, and the person who's just finished voting is the Member of Parliament, the current Member of Parliament, who also doubles up as the Jubilee Director of Elections. And I just want to have a conversation briefly with him concerning his experience and what the situation is like in this area. Very good afternoon to you, Mheshimiwa. What is your experience? You've come, you voted. How long did it take you? And what is your feeling about the election in general, especially in Kenya?
Well, I want to say that I did my civic duty. I was able to vote, and in a record about 6 minutes, the BVR were able to identify me, and I was able to do the whole process within less than 6 minutes. But from what I can see, this queue is a bit slow. I don't know whether the machines have an issue, but by and large, we had said, and especially from our coalition, we had said that in an event that the BVRs are unable to identify you electronically, then it should be fast-tracked by the manual register, because basically it's a copy and paste. And the experience is good. I am happy, but the voter turnout, of course, is not very good. In 2017, we had a voter turnout of about 90%, but going by the percentages that we have, the maximum maybe that you are going to get in Central or in the Mount Kenya region will be in the range of 60 going to 65%. And you know, when that one happens, then definitely it affects the vote of the president. And it doesn't affect the Member of Parliament, doesn't affect the MCA and all that. But you can attribute it to the history of the voting pattern in Mount Kenya. Since 1992, we have been having a presidential candidate who actually we oscillate around, but this time round we don't have a candidate from Mount Kenya region. So basically, you can attribute the voter turnout to lack of a presidential candidate from the mountain.
All right. My last question would be: do you feel, even for your seat, the results that the IEBC will be releasing, do you feel that they would be reflecting the will of the people of Kenya and across this region?
Absolutely, because voting is a choice. You make a decision to vote, and you cannot be forced to go and vote. But we beseech the eligible voters to come and vote, because when you don't vote, then definitely you elect the person you didn't want to elect. So, good people, kindly, we still have a few hours. Come and vote. It is your civic duty to make sure that you participate in identifying the leaders who are going to be your leaders for the next 5 years. And 5 years is actually a long time. You can have a student from Form 1 going to the university. So if you don't have the right leaders, then it means that you deny your children an opportunity to transform their lives. So good people, come out in your numbers to exercise your democratic rights.
All right. Trevor, like you had, the challenge that has been experienced in Nyeri County involves the KIMS kit. In some areas, it was a bit slow, but at the same time, I must say, the voter turnout in all the constituencies that we have been is not very impressive. The numbers seem low. For example, in Mukurweine and in Madera, the weather was a bit cold. It was a bit wet, and so that could have contributed. But when it came to Kenya, the numbers are still low. Yet we can actually see it's sunny. But we're going to be moving from here. We're going to be going back to Nyeri Town and another constituency in Othaya to just see if the picture or the situation is the same as this place. But as you've seen, 1,000 people are supposed to be here voting today, but the numbers that we can see around here, about 100 or so, and so the numbers could actually be very low across this county, as we have seen so far. Back to the studio from Nyeri County, I'm Martin Monene.
All right, thanks, Martin. Martin Mlene there speaking to us live from Nyeri. But if you're just joining us, in a nutshell, there's a lot that has been going on since the polling station opened, right, Vicky?
That's right. We got a glimpse of it when we linked up with Jeff Koinange, who is part of our Sky team. So Citizen TV literally has you covered on the ground, in the air, not water bodies, though. But of course, all the updates that we can give you for our team that's spread across the country.
Exactly. Jeff, there was crisscrossing Narok, and there's 6 constituencies there: Kilgoris, Emurua Dikir, Narok North, Narok East, Narok South, and Narok West. Is heading to Emurua Dikir now. Here's what else you need to know. IBC is only conducting diaspora voting in 12 countries. That is Burundi, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, South Africa, United Kingdom, Canada, USA, South Sudan, Qatar, UAE, and Germany. Australia is not one of them.
All right. Kenya decides. Have you voted? Now, we requested that you share a picture of your finger with the indelible ink. That is proof of you exercising your democratic right. Now, we also caution you, do not send a picture of the ballots. We saw some people do that. That is a secret. So we request that you only send a photo of your finger with the indelible ink. It's just a wonderful way of showing that sense of community on day-to-day.
Yeah, there's a reason it's called secret ballot. You're not supposed to reveal who you're voting for, but you're supposed to exercise your constitutional right of voting. Here's what's going on. As up until now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has cast his vote at Mutumo Primary School in Gatundu South in Kiambu County. He's calling on Kenyans to turn out and vote. We're just giving you a glimpse of what's going on. And all of this, you can find them on www.citizen.digital. That is where you can find it first. Let's give you another issue of what's going on right now. Just at a glance of the state of the race.
And all of these updates also on our Twitter page at Citizen TV Kenya, and of course Azimio Umoja One Kenya running mate Martha Karua. She cast her vote at Homo Primary School in Gishogo, Kirinyaga County. That was a bit earlier on in the day.
Same to Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate William Ruto is casting his vote at Kosache Primary School in the Rubo constituency. That's in Uasin Gishu County. That happened very early in the morning at around 6:30 a.m.
He actually arrived just before polling stations opened, so keeping to his word that he would lead by example to get there early and cast his vote.
Yes, this is just a voting in a glance list to show you what else is going on. You can get all these alerts on citizen.digital. Kenya Kwanza's running mate Rigathi Gachagua cast his vote at Sagana Primary School in Mathira, that's in Nyeri County. That is UDA's deputy presidential candidate. Is William Ruto's running mate.
Exactly.
Not Kenya Kwanza's running mate.
And of course, we saw those pictures a bit earlier on. But all of these updates, Gano Party presidential candidate David Wahiga Waure cast his vote at Upper Hills Secondary School in Nairobi County, and him saying that he felt very special to vote as a presidential candidate. And that was earlier in the day.
Yep. And also in Rongai parliamentary election in Nakuru County has been suspended indefinitely following missing ballot papers. That's according to IBC officials. That's the latest place after there was also another suspension in where was that again?
Suspension
of voting in different places, Kakamega,
Mombasa
as well.
And then in West Pokot, 2 constituencies that were affected. 4 women detained for alleged voter bribery at Toi Primary School polling station, and that's in Kibra, Nairobi.
All right. Quick updates we're just giving you through which you can get on our digital at www.digitalcitizen. I keep getting that wrong. www.citizen.digital. All right. And now let's cross over to Chemtai Goen, who was earlier on. She's covering the Uasin Gishu area, giving us an update of what's going on there.
All right, I understand that she'll be joining us from Wareng High School, and of course that is in Uasin Gishu. She's been covering that from 2 days ago, really, Reverend, in terms of the updates from Uasin Gishu. And of course, mentioned earlier that Deputy President William Ruto cast his vote in Sugoi early this morning.
Absolutely, and we're crossing over to Chemtai Goen in just a bit to find out what's really going on there. There's been a bit of delays in different places where people are complaining that that the KM's gate is not working. But earlier on, Chemtaigo was in Wareng High School, and this is what she found out.
Tumekita kambi katika kituo cha kupigia kura cha shule ya upili ya Wareng, ikiwa bado ni kaunti ya Uasin Gishu, ambapo shughuli ya kupiga kura bado inaendelea, japo kuna maeneo ama ile tunasema stream zingine tunaona kuwa haina watu wengi kama ilivyokuwa katika uchaguzi wa mwaka 2017. Hata hivyo, wale ambao wanaendesha uchaguzi hapa wanasema kuwa wanatarajia kuwa idadi ya watu wanaofika hapa itaongezeka, lakini ukiona kuna maeneo mengine ya kupigia kura ambapo unaona kuna foleni, kuna watu wanaendelea kusubiri, na wale ambao wameweza kupiga kura wanasema kuwa shughuli hii inaendelea bila bugdha yote, na kuwa wakifika pale wakipatiana ile kitambulisho ama wakienda kuangalia biometrics, kila kitu inapatikana na watu wameweza kupiga kura na kuendesha shughuli hiyo kwa urahisi. Na labda tu kuangalia eneo hili ni mahali ambapo wapiga kura wanapiga foleni kabla ya wao kuingia kule ndani kufanya hiyo shughuli ya kupiga kura, lakini tunaona kuwa tume IEBC imeweza kuwawekea jinsi karatasi ya kupigia kura itakuwa. Kwa hivyo wakati uko kwa foleni uko na wakati wa kuipitia na kuhakikisha kuwa chaguo lako umeweza kuona yuko upande gani, ili ukifika pale basi shughuli nzima ya kupiga kura inaendeshwa kwa haraka. Mama, tueleze majina yako, unatoka eneo gani, na labda umefika hapa kupiga kura. Wengi labda wanaona mama kuna watoto, ilikuwa lazima kwenye exercise hiyo right hapa kupiga kura.
Ndio, kwa sababu mimi ni Mkenya na kupiga kura ni haki yangu. Nahitaji mtu mwenye ataniongoza. Uchumi imekuwa mbaya, maisha ni ngumu, lakini nimekuja kupiga kura kwa mabadiliko. Nione Kenya itaenda namna gani, tutabadilika tupiga hatua ama tutabaki pale pale.
Wewe kama mama na naona kuwa uko na watoto wachanga, labda changamoto gani unasema ikiwa yeyote atachaguliwa, nini anafaa kuweka mbele zaidi katika labda utendakazi wake?
Utendakazi wake kenye napenda tuweke mbele, sisi wa mama wajane tuko wengi sana, single mother, na tunapitia hali ngumu na maisha ya town. Kama hawa ni wajukuu yangu, mimi nimesha wacha kuzaa, hawa ni wajukuu yangu, na kama mama utasimamia upande yote, uwezi wacha mtoto yako kando na ujisimamie peke yako. Maisha ni ngumu, sisi single mother tunapitia hali ngumu sana. Kwanza saa hii wakati huu maisha, unga imepanda, kila kitu imepanda, maisha ni ngumu, unajaribu kila upande uwezi.
Labda kidogo tueleze vile umefika hapa kupiga kura. Labda ulipata ile usaidizi ukaenda, sababu tunaona kuwa kuna foleni kidogo.
Mimi nimepata usaidizi mzuri sana, juu hata sijasimama. Vile niko nao watoto sijasimama, nimesaidiwa jinsi inatakikana.
Na shughuli nzima imeendelea vizuri kuangalia?
Imeendelea vizuri, hakuna tatanisi kwa hiyo shughuli.
Asante sana mama. Umesema unaitwa nani na unatoka eneo gani?
Margaret Achieng, natoka upande wa Langas.
Asante sana mama. Kwa hivyo tunaendelea kukita kambi, tukiendelea kuzuru vituo tofauti kuona jinsi shughuli hiyo inaendeshwa, na tumeweza kuona kuwa katika kaunti hii ya Uasin Gishu hatujaweza kupata shida yote kama vile tumeona maeneo mengine ya nchi ambapo shughuli ya kupiga kura ilianza kwa kuchelewa. Maeneo mengine bado vituo hivyo havikuwa vimepata vile vifaa vya kupiga kura, lakini kwa sasa maeneo ambayo tumezuru, zikiwemo karibu maeneo kama 10 hivi, shughuli inaendelea bila tatizo yoyote, na tunatarajia kuwa ikifika saa 11 jioni, wakati ambapo shughuli ya kupiga kura itatamatishwa, basi labda huenda Wakenya watakuwa wamefika kwa wingi kuhakikisha kuwa wanafanya chaguo lao kidemokrasia na kuchangia katika kubadilisha mustakabali wa taifa la Kenya. Kwako studio kwa taarifa zaidi, huku tukiendelea katika pilika za kusaka habari hapa na pale katika kaunti hii ya Uasin Gishu.
Asante sana Chemtaigo in there speaking to us from county 27 Uasin Gishu. 506,138 registered voters. Yeah, it's time now to take let's have a little bit of different conversation.
That's right. We have our guests in studio already with us. Joshua Kipto, Nandi County Assembly Assembly Speaker, as well as Irungu Lutin, Amnesty International Kenya Executive Director. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Brilliant. Joshua, I'll start with you. What is your assessment of the current voting process up until now? It's been 6 hours down the line.
Okay, I think it's average. You'll give a performance of average because the main challenge remains the slow process seen across most of the sessions. In every of your news shot, I've seen people being interviewed. Everyone is complaining that we came early and it's very late. Number two, you even find complaint that it takes up to 10 minutes for around 5 of, like 1, 2, 3 people can take up to 10 minutes, so that's a bit slow. Knowing that as at now we only have 5 hours to close of the polling session, and yet 3/4 of the voters are here to vote. Number two, which is glaring, is the failure of the KIMS kit. That is a serious concern. I think it now gives IBC a chance to, and I keep saying they must have a quick turnaround option of, for example, if the KIMS kit fail, then automatically the CRO, who is the county returning officer, must give the constituency returning officers the right to be able to allow the POs and the DPOs for the use of the manual register. That was a consideration, and I think the CEO Hussein Marjan had mentioned it. He had spoken about that we'll just have a printout. So I would expect that to happen simultaneously, because you can imagine, I saw the case of Matungu and I've seen Mombasa. When you have a significant number of people not voting in the morning, then they go, it will be difficult for the same voters to come back. Importantly, which is more glaring, which I think it will be an indictment on the part of the IBC, will be the typo errors or the printing errors in the ballot papers. That is a serious. If you look at comments, every Kenyan, I don't think any Kenyan anyway is happy with that particular aspect. That one will be a serious talking point, because the question is, we've had 5 years to prepare. Election is a process. You just don't wake up and say we are voting today. And then lastly, on the political side, I think the turnout is a bit of a concern. Unless Kenyans do their thing, we normally show up the last 2 hours, 3 hours. That is the hope. But as it stands, the turnout may not hit the turnout of 2017. Yeah. Hopefully with the 4-5 hours, because in the morning it was rainy, it was chilly, and the technical hitches. Quite a number of Kenyans always prefer coming the last 3 hours. My problem would be the time involved. And the manner in which we've run this particular voting today tells you we must then be vigilant for result transmission. That will be the next fight, because if there's a spillover of time on voting, if a station started voting 3 hours late, then they'll vote all the way to 8 in the night. So no results will be being channeled from that station. Other stations would have started already relaying results. So the next story will be transmission. But first thing first, the turnout level is a serious concern, and I've seen across board. There are some places that would be understandable, because I saw the case of Garissa and Wajir, where they're talking about the drought situation. Automatically that has an impact on the voter turnout. But you can't explain for Mount Kenya why there isn't too much enthusiasm. Generally, Mount Kenya is always a voting machine in terms of they always show up. There's always a lot of excitement. For the first time, I've seen lines in Mount Kenya a bit average, and people look subdued, quiet. So hopefully, as I say, we always have peculiar habits as Kenyans. Hopefully people can turn up from 3 up to 5 or from 2. Because as at now, I presume IBC has been able to try to sort out wherever there are messes, wherever there was a replacement of a KIMS kit. And lastly, it is incumbent upon the candidates also to go out and mobilize. If you had your voters who had shown up in the morning and there was a problem with the KIMS kit and whatever, and the same has been rectified, for example, manual register has been allowed, or a case of a replaced KIMS kit, then the proposal would be, it is only fair for the same candidates right from the MCA and as well as agents up to the presidential level to mobilize and get the voters out. It shows that these particular elections will be won based on the voter turnout. As it stands, I don't know. I've only seen very positive returns in Rift Valley. The queues and the turnout level in Rift Valley is significant. That is the only positive element I've seen, but the other places is still a concern.
Okay, so we have some live pictures from Matungu, where Professor George Wajakoya is now able to cast his vote. Of course, we were there a bit earlier on where he was airing his grievances. There was some issues with the KIMS kits, and he wasn't the only one who was inconvenienced. Several voters had to wait a couple of hours. Now, we do understand the IEBC officials said they would extend voting for that particular polling station, given some of the hitches there. But of course, this begs the question, and I'll direct this to you, Irungu, in terms of some of the contingencies that the IEBC said that it have in place. For instance, having 6 KIMS kits backup for each ward. We didn't see that come into play, at least for Matungu and several other areas in the country. You know, what do you make of their response so far when it comes to some of those hitches?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing, just to say, and I don't know if you've asked everybody to speak with their finger up in the air, but let me just start by doing that and just say that I was at my polling station by 4:45 this morning, and I voted at 6:15, and there was a lot of people who almost broke down the gates to Kilimani Primary School just because they wanted to vote before 6 a.m. So there has been, I think it's a very mixed picture, but I think the key thing really that we have to keep in mind, and that's why we need to be patient in some ways, and Joshua, I think, has laid out some of the big issues, but you're talking about 16,000 candidates, you're talking about 46,000 polling stations, 65.2 million ballot papers. The logistical exercise of running a national election like this, and we haven't even started talking about, I don't know if you've been talking about the diaspora and what the progress is with those 12 countries, which is also part of Kenya for today. But I think we have to insist that there are certain standards that the IEBC had committed themselves to maintaining over this period and really following what may not happening. So I think that's the first thing. Obviously, some of it may be just logistical problems, right? But logistical problems can become election offenses, and I think this is what's most important. What we have been mostly looking at is at the level of, safeguarding Kenyans' right to vote, is making sure that we're keeping an eye on the chaos, we're keeping an eye on the protests that are happening. So in places like Tudor Village or in Rongai and a few other places where you've actually seen voters become unruly and even stop voting for a while, these are matters of concern. I think Kibra and the 4 people that were arrested in terms of vote buying, these are major concerns because these are very clearly election offenses, and all election offenses are essentially designed to suppress votes, to suppress voters. And that's why, I think all the agencies need to be following this very closely. One significant difference in this election is that you do have new institutions that are beginning to look at election offenses. And I think the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has got a call center up and running, which is unprecedented. I don't think we've had a case where the ODPP is setting up a separate investigation, I guess a call-in center, so that he can actually receive information from the public and therefore instruct investigations where this is happening. So I think for Kenyans, we have to be vigilant over this period. I don't think the optimism that was there that we would have results at the presidential level by what time was the protest? Tomorrow morning. I would hope this is the case, but I would just urge Kenyans to be a bit more patient, but also vigilant.
All right, stay with us, Irungu and Joshua, but let's cross over now to the IEBC at the Bomas of Kenya. And Ayub Abdikadir is standing by there. Let's see if we can get some answers. Ayub, do we have any explanations in terms of the delays that are going on and the contingency measures coming up? Ayub?
Thank you, Trevor, Vicky, and Swale from our communication center in Nairobi. And we are the Bomas of Kenya, the nerve center of the IEBC. With me in our field studio is Wanjiru Gikonyo, who is the national coordinator of the Institute of Social Accountability, who has been monitoring the poll process and also in their awareness campaigns as to better our democracy. Wanjiru, thank you for your time. Just quick fire questions here. And what are your observations so far as regards the poll process across the country?
Thanks, Ayub. Happy to be here. I voted early in the morning and also monitoring what's going on through the TV screens and also some of the groups that we are on. Polling is uneventful, as it should be.
really not much to report. I think some delays here and there in terms of the KIMS kit. This is a technology issue. I think it will be looked at thereafter. But we can say, despite the delays, because we know there was a delay in the IBC getting its resources, getting the IBC put together. A lot of doubts about whether they'd be ready on the day. If you look at the communication coming from the IBC, the processes they put in place in terms of their coordination with the political parties, the guidelines in terms of the voting process, in terms of the transmission process, in terms of access by the agents, access by the parties, I think they're prepared, and so far we can say that it's going on well. We are seeing surprisingly low turnout in parts of the country, and Central, of course, is the big battleground. So we wait to see what happens, because it's a game of numbers here. It's a game of numbers. It's the issue of verification and authenticity matters, and I think we've seen the IBC be very careful, including the postponement of a couple of the election in a couple of stations, a couple of positions, and I'm sure that was done because if they get a foot wrong, annulment is right round the corner.
And that's what the Supreme Court pointed out in 2017, the significance of this being a process rather than an event. But when you mention the cases of Kakamega and Mombasa that the Commission mentioned in a statement yesterday, in terms of preparation, what's your observation from the Commission's perspective?
Well, one is the Commission has been in a difficult position because there have been numerous court cases around the eligibility of candidates. And this happened until the last moment, and we could hear the IBC chair telling us they need to print the ballots. And of course, this was delayed a little bit because of questions around the Chapter 6, who should be on the ballot. And of course, the court cases eventually came out with a decision that meant some of the previously candidates who had been disallowed were allowed, some of those who had been allowed were disallowed. So there was some confusion leading up, so that may have contributed to this. So maybe we give the Commission the benefit of the doubt.
Well, let me just pause you, because we need to cross over to the media center where the Commission will be issuing a press conference in effect to what's happening across the country polling centers. And here, let's cross over live to the media center of the Bomas of Kenya and listen.
For a smooth conduct of the general election. Regarding security, last night, the Commission was alerted of incidents of gunfire in Elders constituency. Election officers in Wajir County, where ballot materials were stored. During the gunfire, election officials remained trapped inside the offices, preparing to dispatch materials to polling stations. Election has been adjourned, and voting shall begin once the issue is resolved. In Turkana Central Constituency, the Commission was informed of a road accident involving a presiding officer and 2 clerks from Kalakol Ward. The 3 were rushed to hospital with minor injuries and later discharged. The officials have since been replaced to allow them to recuperate. We wish the other 3 officials a quick recovery. Due to security concerns raised in the Dab constituency and 4 polling stations specifically, Maguto Primary School, Bakin Primary School, Bahajo Borehole and Court Borehole are yet to be opened. The Commission is in consultation with security to address the issues raised. The Commission is working through its ICT officers to resolve any reported issues on the KIMS kit by the returning and presiding officers. The Commission has therefore authorized the use of the manual register in Makueni County that is Kibezi West constituency, for 84 polling stations. And Kakamega County, specifically Malava, Matungu, Mumias West, Mumias East constituencies for 154 polling stations. As stated above, the Commission has provided 6 backup kits per ward in the event of the failure of the KIMS kit. In conclusion, the Commission urges members of the public to utilize the toll-free line, that is 1543 and 1544, should they wish to bring incidences to the Commission's attention. Where there is a delay in the opening and interruptions of voting at a polling station, the presiding officer shall extend the hours of the polling by the amount of the time lost. The Commission will keep you regularly updated on all development touching on the general election. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Thank you.
It has been worked on. It was not specifically addressed, but it has been worked on. We'll give you in the next update.
It has been worked on. It was not specifically addressed, but it has been worked on. We'll give you in the next update.
Okay, you want me to repeat the areas where we've allowed the manual register to be used? The areas are Makueni County, that is Kibezi West constituency.
Okay, you want me to repeat the areas where we've allowed manual register to be used? The areas are Makueni County, that is Kibezi West constituency for 84 polling stations. Then we have Kakamega County, where we have Malaba, Matungu, Mumias West, and Mumias East constituency for 154 polling stations. Allow me to say that when someone goes to the polling station, first you are identified biometrically. If your biometrics cannot allow your details to pop up, then they will use your ID number, the alphanumeric. And by using that, they have to fill a form 32 to show that you've been validated in that way. And if you're not found, then now they'll check if it is the kit or something else that has happened. So ICT officers are on the ground. When they are called upon at the polling station, they check the kit and ascertain that it is the failure of the kit and not any other failure. So these areas that we've allowed, it has been ascertained, and the returning officer has officially written emails to the commission to be given authority to use the manual register. Remember the court ruling that was yesterday, that we have to use that procedure.
This morning I went to one of the police stations to find the names of the tested the Bomas. Those whose names don't appear on the walls, check with the kid, because like I've just said, many people are getting frustrated and some are turning away.
chama cha UDA Bomas
Naitwa Fred Kumitini, mimi ni MTV. Tafadhali unaweza kunithibitishia ikiwa mwaniaji wa bunge la Vita na chama cha UDA Bomas amekamatwa. Unaweza kunithibitishia pia mwaniaji wa kiti cha MCA kule Mombasa vilevile Chuda kama amekamatwa. Ikiwa unaweza kunithibitishia. Jeremiah from Bailey. What is the reason for the failure of the King's kids? Is it something you're facing nationally?
Allow us to respond to those three. There's the issue of whether the candidates in Mombasa have been arrested. We are working closely with the National Police Service.
Allow us to respond to those three. There's the issue of whether the candidates in Mombasa have been arrested. We are working closely with the National Police Service, but that information has not come through. We have the toll-free numbers that we are getting information. So we will give you the update in the next brief. So allow me to call upon any commissioner to respond on the two other questions that have been raised.
Thank you for the question, and I will particularly address the failure of the King's Kid. What we have received so far and addressed is about 200 failure of King's Kids out of 46,229. It is not widespread. Technology do break down, and when they do, we have an alternative of how we need to address that, which we have already done. And I think that is a normal thing that is happening. There's nothing ideal in this world. So we still we expect that 1 or 2 or 10 may actually also present a malfunction, but that does not really mean that it is widespread. It is only 200 out of 46,229.
I wanted to respond to your question. You said outside the polling station, some people, the names are on the register but are not in the kit. I was requesting you give us the names of the stations because that information has not come through, and then we'll follow up and report at our next reporting time. So kindly give us the names.
Basi watatete kufika uchague
kila mtu amesimama
so far by at about 30% or something like that. And this range is Mombasa and Kakamega within that same range, or whatever you be affected, the turnout in those particular two counties. Another thing is report from the ground that in game constituencies they are adopting some of the registers and obviously could you confirm to us in the next that this is true, that the arrow in game are withdrawn the manual registers from some of the stations?
Thank you very much. First question on the turnout. What we gave you as turnout as at noon is national, not constituency or county specific. I know why you're asking. So we will give you our data at the end of the day, and you can make that conclusion for yourself. So the other thing is about withdrawal. We are not aware. We are in touch with our all 290 ROs. If there is any such incident, we will be able to find out and give you update in the next update. On Eldas, we have sent a commissioner to the ground. The Eldas issue is not a commission problem, it's a security issue. So we have sent a commissioner today morning, the chopper there, to go and find out whether there can be a solution out of it. It's militia taking over the whole place and they are fighting in town. So we are trying to work with candidates plus the security so that we can see whether they can vote tomorrow or later in the day. So that conclusion we'll be able to give you in our next update. Yes, Leila. Repeat, please. There's what? Which portal?
70,000.
But today, when they go to the polling station, it's not there. Have not been allowed to vote. This specific polling station is in South Sea, and many are still waiting, even 2 hours.
First of all, Porto has no link to the case. It is just where we keep our entire national register so that anybody can check. So the issue of possibly when you go and check in,
first of all, Porto has no link to the case. It is just where we keep our entire national register so that anybody can check. So the issue of possibly when you go and check in your portal, you are removed or something like that might not arise. But we check people using their biometric or their ID. If you cannot be found, if they have that message and it shows which polling station, the message tells you even which stream you are in the polling center. So they should go to the stream specific and find out. But if you give us the details of the polling station, we'll be able to pick up the. You said it is south. That is Langata constituency, so we'll be able to find out specific. So we'll take note, and in our next report, we'll give you an update specific. Yes. So we'll come back after. Last one.
Okay, I have a question. My name is Cecilia Luganga from Lookup TV, and there was an incident today in the morning from a voter who goes by the name of Moses Onyango, who lamented that by the time he was reporting at the polling station where he's registered and supposed to vote and gave his social call, apparently it was stated that according to the system he had already voted, yet he was not yet back. So how can you respond to that?
He has already voted?
Yes, according to the system, he had already voted, but apparently he had not even reported to the polling station. So he came later only to find out that by 8 a.m. it is recorded that he had already voted.
Really? I don't think such situation can arise. Because unless you go there and put your fingerprint on the machine, and once you vote, your small finger is inked with indelible ink, there's no way system can mark you as voted.
We are not aware of any such incident, and I don't think it can arise going by our system protocol. Because you can only vote by visiting a
And that is the IBC Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera fielding questions from members of the press at the media center here at the Bomas of Kenya. And Wanjiro, 2 issues stand out: insecurity and the manual voter register, which was put into use especially in the counties of Kakamega and in Makwene. What do you make of this from the general perspective of preparedness by the Commission?
Right. In terms of the preparedness, security, of course, is not a function of the Commission, and I think the Commissioner is completely right in saying that. Now, with the government, they put in place some structures. One, we were told that there are 150,000 police officers deployed. We were also told that additional personnel, security personnel, were being deployed to Turkana, to Marsabit. I imagine now some will need to be deployed in Wajir because of the existing security concerns there, and we know some of these are politically motivated. We know that they will set up a national multi-sectoral consultative forum to deal with these things that reports to the National Security Council. So the national government has put in place measures to deal with security. That isn't within the IBC. On the part of the IBC, of course, we need to look at the preparedness. There are a number of issues that were of concern last time that they have dealt with. One of the concerns was the non-3 GG polling stations. Those were gazetted, site visits were made. There's been regular meetings with the political parties. There's a liaison committee that meets and discusses. They also have, political parties now have access to the results. They have the portal logging credentials. They're able to review the forms. The tallying was agreed. Last time there was confusion around the tallying, access to the API. So the issue of the manual register is an issue that's been litigated in court. Of course, we had amendments that were enacted early in the year that said we'll be able to use both. So the electronic as well as the manual. Now the issue was, do you use both concurrently, or do you use one, have a main register and a fallback register? The court determined that. So, and it determined it in line with the IBC guidelines. So as far as I'm concerned, looking at the evidence, the IBC has tried. It's done its level best to meet those standards. It now falls upon the agents of the political parties to ensure they are keen. They are observers also at the polling stations so that they can also make sure that the process is laid down, the promises given by the IBC and the guidelines that they have themselves published are adhered to. So yes, I think it's in order, and we don't need to raise suspicion and cast aspersions where they are not warranted.
Okay, Wanjiru, thank you. And we'll be, of course, looking forward to more discussions about the outcome. So far, 6.2 million voters generally, and according to the Commission, Boya Abdimolo, that's generally a reflection across the country, not specific to constituencies or counties. And she is the national coordinator of the Institute of Social Accountability. We'll be getting her account going forward as to the outcome of the poll and what happens next, especially from this evening, and then the counting that begins, the 7-day time from that the IEBC has to declare the presidential election right here at the Bomas of Kenya, where our field studio is, and we'll be giving our viewers an update on Kenya's Choice on Citizen Television from the field here, where everything will be happening as to the IEBC is taking over of the counting process across also the 290 constituencies across the country. For now, I'll hand you over to my colleagues Trevor Mbija and Vicky Rubadiri, who are standing by at the Communication Center. And over to you.
Thanks, Ayub. Ayub Abdikadir there speaking to us live from Bomas. You said we're covering this literally wall to wall, so we'll cross over to him as well on ground and in the air. We're leaving out the water.
Just the water bodies we've left out, yeah. So hopefully in the next election we'll be back to them.
We needed submarines, would have deployed them anyway.
I'm sure we would have. But of course, we were hearing a bit earlier on from the IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera giving us updates on some of the incidents recorded across the country. And of course, now we do understand that quite a few polling stations have had to rely on that manual register. That's 84 polling stations in Makueni County and 154 polling stations in Kakamega.
Absolutely, and she also mentioned that there were incidents of gunfire in Eldasta in Wajiru. We're speaking to Abdigafar earlier on there, and the polling has not started there at all. The officials were trapped, that's what they're saying. And also in Turkana, there was an accident that involved a presiding officer and 2 clerks who were then rushed to hospital, but they are in stable condition. And of course, some more officials have already been deployed there. The security situation in Dadaab is concerning, and they haven't opened polling there just yet.
And of course, those have an effect on voter turnout. And they also addressed the issue of the KIMS kits. They said it's not as widespread as it's being portrayed to be. So far, 200 KIMS kits have failed, and that's out of the over 46,000 that they have in operation. But they've put some contingencies in place to ensure that voting still continues.
Yeah, and they're calling this a normal occurrence because they're saying this happened
Technology
200 out of 46, 229. But let's bring in Joshua on this. Joshua Kipto, as an advocate, can they be held liable for such failures? And is this ground for a contest after the results are declared?
Now, the legal threshold would be what impact does it have on the voting process and the possible outcome. What will be so significant will be the outcome, because from a voter perspective, have you disenfranchised the voter? Number 2, has it had an impact on the possible outcome of the result? Because what is contested in court is the result, whether the election was free and fair. So the threshold will be the amount. I'll give them a pass. If indeed it is 200 out of 46,000, that would make it understandable. And the first thing we mentioned here before we went live and heard from the IBC summed up my proposition, which was where it fails within a very short time they have to make a decision to progress on to implementary manual system. And I think my only concern should be the channel it takes. How long does it take for the same to be acted upon? If it was noticed as early as 7:30 in the morning, I think with the level of preparedness and the amount of personnel deployed, right from the polling clerks, presiding officer, deputy presiding officer, you have the returning officer, that is the constituency county returning officer. I would expect them to short circuit that channel so that a commission, and I've had the commissioner mentioning that it is them who make the decision. So that decision must come clear, but within a very short time, so that for Makueni and Matungu, as I have mentioned, should not have voters who've been disenfranchised because they waited too long. So I'm happy with that quick action, and at the same time, I think they also mentioned that they are seeking to extend the time wherever. Number two, I think they also address the issue of the turnout, which we have spoken about.
Hapana, Siva, tunataka kufanya na akaunti yako ili uonekane uko na baby
na akaunti yangu.
Unajua, alafu tag hapo chini ili tuonekane sisi ni watoto wako.
What is important for the process is what
Ndio mwende viral.
Will it be said that it has disenfranchised? If there's a small number that have failed and there's a complementary mechanism, I don't think IBC can be liable unless it is so widespread and so significant and no solution was offered on the table, and at the end of the day voters never voted, then that will create problems for them, especially for close races. When you have a race where someone loses by 10 votes, 1,000 votes, 500 votes, that now brings every aspect of the process to question, because one thing
nilikuwa najaribu kuembarrass nikakufanyia mambo alafu ukasema pana